Now is the time, a time you'll look back on, a time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time, this moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success. Overcome, take over. The time is now.
Still a great tune.
It is. It's quality. We're back, boys. We are back. Good evening, everyone. Welcome.
Good evening.
NUFC.
Apart from Chris, who couldn't be asked again.
No, I think you're fine.
And you know what?
He's asleep.
His excuse was a belter today. It's just like, it's the best he's had so far. So yeah, I picked the kid up from school and then I fell asleep. And I'm already awake, so I think I need an early night. He's a legend, I tell you, legend.
Bless him. Bless him.
Bless him. Yeah, I hope you're sleeping tightly and you got your little PJs on, Chris, and your little woolly socks, and you're all tucked up with your water bottle. Jesus.
You're making that he's older than us.
Well, he's not older than me, that's for sure.
Anyway, we're back, and a bit of a mashup tonight because it's been a while. Had a little bit of time off, so we thought, why not come back on and talk about all things Newcastle? So
Andy forgot it's the second half of the quiz tonight as well.
Oh, fuck off!
See you there, lad. Good luck.
Oh my God.
I'm only joking. I love a good 3-hour quiz. You know, Richie.
Oh God, I got screwed with that on the 12th man. Yes, last night as well.
Yes, you got stung.
We went to the Race for Europe show. Oh, we go live. Oh, by the way, it's a quiz. I'm like, oh, fuck, I would have had one. I would have had one last week. I don't want another one. But no, it's all good. It's all good. Congrats again to Statman Keith. Absolutely spot on.
Unreal, isn't he?
He's literally like Siri. He's like Siri.
Yeah. To be fair though, he never goes out. He just lives in the bubble out the back of his mum's house. Just reading encyclopedias and looking at the internet. And it's like the hours he spends on the internet, it's not even like the bad stuff. He actually looks at stuff that's intelligent. You know what I mean? Not like the rest of us that use the internet for other stuff.
Speak for yourself.
I was speaking for Chris.
Yeah. He's going to be an easy target. So
yeah, he's getting it tonight, because he didn't show up. Yeah.
But, boys, football finally is back. I don't know about you. I hate internationals. I absolutely hate them. And football is back in, but there's been a few talking points. And look, we'll start nice and lightly. Congratulations, firstly, to our own Fabian Schär. He's got his master's degree in sports management. So he's very excited and happy, as you can see, with that. And no, fair play to him, because he's obviously clearly, what is he, 31 now? He's got to be looking ahead now to his. Yeah,
he must start to do his badges and stuff, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. Looking to his next step, that's for sure. So fair play to him.
And I think it's good that he's got more qualifications than Steve Bruce ever had.
Well, I think even before his badges, before his masters and his badges, he definitely had that.
Marty.
Well, if you're up and watching, why didn't you come on, you dosser? I tell you.
You're always watching. Definitely. But look, boys, we're moving towards the big game. And what I wanted to ask you firstly is there's been a few people talking about worries with regards to Sven Botman. Okay, Sven Botman didn't get his international cap, unfortunately. He got, I think there was a bout of food poisoning, which a number of them didn't make it.
Six of them got wound up with. They went out for a curry apparently the night prior to the first training session, and 6 or 7 of them got struck down after all having the same kind of chicken curry from some restaurant they went to.
Are you worried that he is a potential doubt for the game on Sunday then?
No.
Not at all.
No.
He's training. Like there's been pictures of him training back at St James, back in Newcastle. So I have no doubt that the only consideration I've got for the team is, does Joe Linton slot straight back in? That's my only, because I don't think that midfield of Bruno, Longstaff and Willock deserves to get broken up.
Yeah.
So that would be my only one piece. I think Botman goes straight back in as normal. Defense will be the same 5 for me. I think the midfield, there's a question. And the only other one is, depending on ASM, does Gordon go straight back in? Because I don't think Murphy deserves to get dislodged either. So it would be Gordon for ASM, possibly. And Joe Linton, does he go straight back in? They're my only 2. I think Isaac starts up front as per he has done.
The only reason I asked the question about Botman is because I think of all the players that got the bout of food poisoning, Botman was the only one that wasn't in the squad for the second game. So that's what maybe worried me. So, like, Richie, I'll come to you. Do you think that maybe that's Holland just being taking a bit more of a precaution with him, or do you think Newcastle have maybe stepped in with regards to that?
Just before I come to it, Pete, I've got someone here who wants to say a little message. Chris?
Oh.
All right, Chris.
Thank you so much for the voucher, which was your prize. I put the money towards getting this new training top, which was on the website. So thank you so much.
So that's to Geordie 2 for life for the voucher you gave away last week.
No worries. They play to him, Geordie 2 for life.
Thank you.
No worries, pal.
Cheers,
little Chris.
Cheers, lads. Anyway, regards Botman, no, I think it's probably just a little bit of precaution on both fronts. I think at the end of the day, I think it was the second game was not as important as the first one. You know, the opposition for Holland, so there was no need to take the extra risk, in my opinion. And obviously, we've got a huge game on Sunday, so it's probably better just to play caution to the wind and, you know, give them a chance to get fully back to health, no issues and stuff like that. And, you know, hit the ball, the ground running on Sunday, because obviously we know, if, you know, we're pretty much going to be back to near on full strength on Sunday, if it, obviously with him in it as well. And obviously Man United on, as we said, discussed last week, they're the boots on the other foot for them. They've pretty depleted, especially in the midfield area, which is their strong point. And obviously just touch and go, whether obviously Rashford, I think it's just that they're playing games with us on social media. That obviously Rashford is there, like, but
if he doesn't start, Richie.
I would as well. You know, put it this way, we expect him to. It's a bonus if he doesn't. That's all I would say on that one. But no, I think Botman's just a precautionary, Pete.
Yeah, and you boys already mentioned it. There's a picture come out today of him back in training, so it does fill me with confidence. But I'll just, you know, again, you're never ever quite sure, and you don't know what Eddie Howe's going to say in his presser on Friday with regards to the game. So it was always something that was a little bit up in the air. But what you have said from a Newcastle perspective, before we briefly talk about Man United, is that Big Joe's back. And for me, we'll discuss in a second where we think he's going to start, or where I think he'll play. But for me, he has to start. He is one of a few guarantees that start in this team, in my opinion. And it's, you know, I can't think of a better game for him to come back in. But where would you play him, boys? If he comes back in, where do you play him?
Does he play in the middle, or do you push Willock out to that left and no ASM? Do you take ASM and put ASM right, and Murphy is the unfortunate one? I don't know. I mean,
I think he goes out
in there because you can boss that midfield, especially with Casemiro, and Sabotizer, I think, is out as well. So, it looks from Man United that it's the midfield of Fred and McTominay. So I think we have an opportunity to really dominate that midfield, and especially with Casemiro being out, I think you could probably do a job on the rest of them. But he was unfortunately outstanding against us at Wembley. But Joe, I think you're right, Pete. Joe has to come back in, but I'm not necessarily. I just think that midfield doesn't deserve to get broken up. I think they've been playing really well. I think Willock's been, the Willock of old, and I think Longstaff and Gameras have been playing well together. So it's where do you put them? Which is a nice thing to have, by the way.
I think he comes back on the left, Mart. If I'm honest with you, we talked about it last week because we saw how reliable he is on that left hand side as well, helping Dan Burn and stuff like that as well. So the thing is, what you could do is I think Murphy keeps his place because obviously he was fantastic in the Forest game. And obviously Joe Linton comes back in. And what you can do is, because obviously he's had that 2 week, well, it's longer than 2 weeks rest really now, because obviously they've had the international break as well. When one of the centre midfielders tires, you can drop them back in there, and that's when you can bring Gordon and Maxi on like that, and then continually stretch the Man United back four. So for me, I would start on the left because we know how reliable and how, him playing there with the three centre midfielders, obviously he helps drop back as well. That was a winning formula for Eddie Howe, and it's a trusted formation and trusted personnel as well. So it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he does come back and he starts on the left.
Bash? Any thoughts to that?
Sorry, Pete. The last two questions, I've been trying to fix my IT issue, my camera, and man the chat. But yeah, back to the Botman question. Yeah, Botman comes back in. I don't have any worries that he'll start. Big Joe comes in as well. Definitely for this game, it's a must to have Joe Linton back, and he's wasn't in training. I see himself and Bruno playing Richie and Manquillo in a bit of head tennis. Yeah, so he's up for it. Let's looking forward to it.
Would any of you take Murphy out of the team?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
I think he deserves his spot. I think last two games, I think he's been one of the best performers. I think some of his crossing, he has that. A couple of the times he's had crosses, I would liken him to Gillespie. He doesn't necessarily have to beat the man. He's got that half yard where he can put it round the defender.
Yeah.
And I think some of the crosses that have gone in, his crosses have been absolutely bang on. We just haven't finished them. Like his balls across the 6 yard line and in between that position of goalkeeper and back of the defence. The couple of balls, the prior game before the international break, his crosses in from the right were fucking amazing. So I think he deserves to stay, and I'm presuming Almiron's still out.
Wow, that's another conversation.
Yeah, because there was a picture of him at Heathrow Airport with a Newcastle fan, and apparently he told him he's fit and good to go. And
he's already been back running. It doesn't. We'll get onto the Miggy situation because I think that's maybe more of a difficult conversation. But Richie, would you, in your opinions, take Murphy out in order to fit Joe Linton in within this team?
No, I think it's the left hand side he comes in for. Murphy deserves to, since he came on against Man City. And obviously the amount of chances he created in that short period of time, and he kicked on in the Wolves game and the Forest game as well. It's been really creative down that side as well. And no, I wouldn't be obviously Alan Maxim has been hit and miss all season. He had perfect example to go to Forest and really Friday night set the world alight on TV, show him what he's made for, and he was abysmal. He was awful on, don't get us wrong. I know there's probably going to be people who come on the chat now saying we're hating on ASM and stuff like that. Look, we give him credit when he gets credit due, but if he has a bad performance, we'll tell him he's got a bad performance. And I think anybody who watched that game will say Maxi had a bad performance against Forest. So, it sums it up. And, obviously Gordon's still fighting his feet in the team. Obviously he's had a little bit of an ankle knock. So, people would say he could possibly come in and play on either flank and stuff. But, just bring him back in. And obviously, Joe Linton will do a job on the left. Okay, it doesn't have that wing play as such, because obviously he's not really an out-and-out winger or anything like that. Obviously, there's the rumor as well going out there that Callum Wilson's back fit and raring to go after Dubai. Do they bring him in and then do they play Isak on the left? There's loads of possibilities, but for me, you can't drop Isak from the middle the way he's played the last few games. And Joe Linton, for me, comes back on that left-hand side and you keep Murphy on the right. And then you've got quality to come on from the bench. You could if you look at that front three and substitutes, you've got Maxi, Gordon and Wilson. That's a fantastic front three to come on off the bench.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Richie. Look at that bench there. Like, I go with what David Cook has on the screen there, and look at that bench, and even Miggy as well on if he was fit enough for the bench as well. But it's go with that, and it's great to have options in to mix it up if we need to.
Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't drop Murphy. I thought Murphy was fantastic. I was actually, isn't it strange, like how like differently we feel after 6 months, a year. Everyone wanted him out. Everyone wanted Murphy gone. And yet that Friday night at Forest at the City Ground, I was annoyed that he was subbed. I wanted him to stay on the pitch. I was almost like, why have you taken him off? He's one of our best performers. And I don't think I never thought I would ever have that sort of feeling towards Murphy. He loves the club, family from the area, all that stuff. He grew up supporting Newcastle. But I never thought I'd genuinely be in a position where I'm like, don't take Murphy off. The amount of times that we've said it so many times in games where Murphy and Wood have been stood on the touchline, we're going, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just his end piece. And don't forget Anderson.
Yeah.
Another
Anderson,
one to spring.
Yeah, to coin a phrase there, just said the same thing. Forget Anderson. The thing with Murphy is the kid's got talent, right? He's got pace to bloody burn.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of like the ASM thing. It's been his end product. It's been when he's had the opportunities making bad decisions. And that's started to change. He's not, he still sometimes, shoots when he shouldn't. And, he's probably had a couple of chances he should have finished. But I think that'll come because you can see he's being worked with. But I think what the last few games, what we've seen, I think is more that his decision-making has been getting worked on. He's lifting the head and he's playing the cross at the right time and the right kind of cross. And I think he hasn't done that for us before. So you can definitely see he's been working hard and he's obviously working with the coaching team on his decision making on when to, fire it high, when to fire it low, where to cross from, when to cross from. And I think that's become quite evident in the last few games that he's improved.
You look at that team on the screen there. This is the team that I fully expected to be. Someone else put it in the chat, and I can't remember who it was, but I absolutely agree with you in that, this here, and we've all talked about it before, and we've all agreed that this here was the reason why we made our push into the top four to begin with. That's solidarity there in that position. Those two being able to interchange, the support that they give to Dan Burn. I think, the only thing that's lacking is maybe the link that sometimes Isaac and ASM have, but I can more than get past that because you've got ability of getting good crosses into the box. Sorry, but as you guys have just mentioned, look at that bench. When have we had a bench like that before?
Yeah.
Wilson, Miggy, Gordon, and there's rumours around Miggy, whether he is or not, but still, ASM, Anderson, you've got Target coming on the left back. Richie, I can't knock Richie. I thought he played really well when he came on against Forest. I thought he did all right when he came on and still pushed the game. So that team there, for me, is a team that can really go on and push Man United. I will say, Martin, you made the point. I don't know whether you would agree with this about whether you play Joe in the middle or not. I just think Joe can dominate this area here.
Absolutely. With Casemiro out, you want Longstaff, Bruno, and Joe Linton in that middle three. Willock on the left, who I think, to be fair, has a better link up with Isaac.
Yeah,
I think that they seem to click a bit more, and I think with Big Joe being out, that formation that you have there now, Pete, is exactly what I would go with. I think you've got the battle of the two Brunos, which I think they kind of, to a degree, they cancel each other out, which they did at Wembley, to be fair.
Yeah.
But I think the other two there, depending, Longstaff is on his top game, because I'm sure we'll come on to McTominay at some point, which I never thought I would say. But he is kind of on form at the moment. So I think, Longstaff needs to have a really good game. I think Joe Linton will boss Fred. Look, Fred is shite. We know that. So I think that piece there, if Bruno can keep Fernandes quiet along with the back five, I think this front kind of three and this midfield two can run riot at that back 4 or 5 of Man United, because I don't think they can defend.
Yeah, definitely.
I've got to say, Pete, just while we're talking about McTominay and all that stuff, that's an interesting battle, full stop, because how many times have we heard over the last few weeks since McTominay's been getting scouted and mentioned in transfer leagues, everyone saying he's an upgrade on Longstaff. Yeah. So sure enough, we're going to see on Sunday, who's better than who. There's a lot of people that don't think that McTominay is any better than Longstaff. So obviously we'll see that on Sunday, and obviously going back to just another point I wanted to mention before, and I forgot to mention it in the previous point, but we were saying about who's going to start on the left. Well, we've all said that we don't expect ESM to start, but the interesting thing is his 2 best games this season were against Man City and Liverpool, 2 of the so-called Big Six at home. So, and obviously we saw how he played it. He had a good game against Man United at home last year. So is it that he just likes to turn up for the big occasion at St James? So that's something to also consider as well. I don't think that's going to make that much of a difference, because he's had 2 really fantastic games this season. But that interchange between Joe Linton and Willock, I think, especially with the team we're playing against, I think that's the one that they should go for. I think they will go for on Sunday.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add is that the one thing I'm saying, look, we'll talk about McTominay in isolation with regards to in a second, but what you'll find is that against Scotland, McTominay was playing here as a number 8. What you'll find against us on Sunday is that he'll play here, because he's not going to shift his position. He's the number 8, stroke number 10. He's the guy that will make the links and run forward. He'll come and meet that, like he did, against Spain, but he'll be coming from a much deeper position with a lot less freedom. And when you've got players like Willock, when you've got players like Murphy, when you've got players like Joe Linton that are constantly in and around you, I genuinely think he's going to be thinking more about going that way than that way. And when he goes that way, that's when he's not at his best. So I do think that we're going to see a different performance from him. If he plays in that deeper position and that's a great game, fair enough. But I just don't think that he's going to have the game that we've seen from Scotland, because he's not going to get the same type of freedom. But you're absolutely right, Richie. Like he's going to be out to prove a point. He's going to be out to put performance in Longstaff, as if to say, you don't need him because you've got me. You've got me here. You don't need to be going and signing a player like him. So it's going to be a really, really interesting one. But anything else you want to mention? Lineup related, player related.
Maybe look, you've kind of covered it a bit, but like the big difference is going to be Casemiro missing, because he was unreal in the League Cup final. So this is where we're at home. Casemiro is missing. We're off this. This is a battle, for as we know that to get into the top 4. So it's all to play for. It's all set up nicely, and look, we're looking. Look, as you said already, that bench is looking strong as well. Whether Almira makes it or not is questionable, but we have every chance going into this. And I know people are saying it in the chat; they're feeling confident. So bring on football again, bring on real football again, and bring on this game on the weekend.
I think the other thing with this game is I have a suspicion that Man United will sit a little bit deeper. And especially with Newcastle being at home, I think they will, certainly at the start, I think they will sit deeper and invite us on and try and catch us on the break.
That's exactly what they are, Mark. They're a counter-attacking team. Man United have not played dominating, possessional.
No, they won't push up. That midfield won't push up too far past that halfway line, I think, that first half.
one thing I'm confident in is that you look at the stats at the end of the game, regardless of the result, and we will have more possession than them. We will have more of the ball than them. But equally, that's what Man United want. Is because what they want, and I'll just go back to tactical very quickly. What they want is to do exactly what you've just said, Mark, and sit in these positions here, win the ball, and then all of a sudden he's there, and they've got these guys running forward, and they want to try and catch us on the break. The one big difference about that, compared to any other team that they've faced this season, and I mean this genuinely, is that this back line know how to deal with it. The only ones that broke us were Liverpool, and they did it from long balls going forward, and that's because they had a goalkeeper that was very good at distributing the ball.
And De Gea's not.
He's shite. Like, I've got no issue with him. He's shite, and I think that's the big difference. I think we'll hold possession. If we get an early goal, guys, it could be on to really, really smash these. And it might be me being overconfident and getting excited because football's back, but I genuinely believe we've got a great chance of putting these guys to the sword, and boy, do they deserve it. But yeah,
there's got to be a little bit of revenge there. I know Eddie will set up and do his thing normally and tactically, but I think if you're a player after coming off the back of Wembley, you'd be up for this. You have to be up for this game at home to kind of go, do you know what? Okay, you got us at Wembley. We'll be back, but do you know what? We're better than you.
Yeah, 100%.
Has to be.
And just to add, we get that early goal, they've got to then press onto us.
They've got to come higher.
Their game plan changes completely, which then falls into our favour. So, again, interesting talk, interesting opinions with regards to players and various other things. But look, let's stay with that conversation. There's a couple of other things. I'm sure
maybe Pete, because just maybe, well, there's 133 in the chat they're watching now. Maybe we should just say, first of all, make sure you hit that like button and you subscribe. But just in case you have to drop out of the in round, I think, Pete, you should tell them what's on tomorrow. What's happening on tomorrow's show?
Away days. We are back, so we'll be talking more tactics and more opinions. And we've got a couple of new guests that are going to come and join us. So we've got Dan, if you were watching Battleground Europe, Dan from United First is going to come and join us. Great lad, great opinions, and he's really looking forward to coming back on. And we've got a new guest coming to join us. And some of you, with certainly with regards to the takeover, might know him because he is very, very opinionated. And it's Terry Flowers is coming to join us on the show. He'll be just a slightly little bit later than Dan. I spoke to Terry about a year ago, and he was always been interested on coming onto the show and talking Man U Newcastle, but it's never quite worked. But he's going to come on and have a conversation. Be really, really interesting to see what he's got to say. He doesn't hold back with his opinions, so he might not be like many other viewers that we've had on before. But look, we'll take him to task as we do with every guest.
I've been giving him a bit of jip recently for some of his comments. Fair bit, to be fair.
To be fair, Lord, who haven't you given jip to?
Or anybody.
Yeah, that should be fun.
And then on Twitter, I think
Twitter is great for that. But to be fair, Twitter is all about opinion. It's an opinion platform, whether you like, dislike, whether you don't agree, do agree. The unfortunate thing is some people take it personal. You can, to me on Twitter, you can say what you want to me. I don't necessarily, I don't take it personal because it's just your opinion at that time on a subject that may mean something to you, may mean nothing to you, but it's good crack. So, and if you want to dish it out, you got to be prepared to take it.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we'll be asking him all these questions, whether it's about the takeover and the Qatari bid and all that stuff that's been going on at the moment. We're talking about Man U. He's been very, very vocal in his opinions of Man U and where they are right now. So let's see what he's got to say. So it will be an interesting show, that's for sure. And he'll be coming with a big following. He has his own channel, The Football Terrace. So if you've not watched his show before, give that one a watch. But away days tomorrow night, check it out. That should be a good one. Jimmy, welcome to the chat. It's not quite Goldbridge. Terry's not quite Goldbridge, but yeah, very.
He's just
very,
as opinionated.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But Terry is a Man United fan, whereas Goldberg's a Nottingham Forest fan. So there you go.
Yeah,
it's nice. It's also nice to see Jimmy tune into Loaded Wednesday. Nice one, Jimmy.
You
Gotcha.
had
We
that in
got
your
you.
mind, didn't
We
you?
got you, Jimmy. We got you. Trying to cause trouble. It's not going to happen.
Brilliant.
Oh,
Quality.
God.
But look, let's stick with the conversation. In fact, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Why not stay on the Terry Flewis conversation? And I want to get your thoughts about this. Look, I have to be honest. I try and stay away from this stuff because otherwise it would drive me mad. But Martin, you've already talked about that you've had one or two conversations with people on social media about this topic, and it's this. It's the stuff with regards to Richard Masters' comments. So a friend of the channel, Ben Jacobs, has said Richard Masters has told the MPs that he can't really comment on whether the Premier League are investigating who has control of Newcastle United. The English Premier League received legal binding assurances from the PIF that the Saudi government would have no control over Newcastle. And obviously, Darren Owen of the BBC has mentioned as well, could the Premier League revisit its approval of the Saudi takeover of Newcastle United in light of the US court case involving Live Golf? It's been very, very vocal. What surprises me is that it's been talked about even more than the Qatari bid for Man United. Interesting. Look, I'll come to you, Mark, because I know you've obviously had your opinions on this. What do you make of all this at the moment?
Anybody that follows me will know that. Where do I start? So, yeah, I've had a few conversations with a few people, one of who I will talk about shortly. So here's my issue, and here's when you're going to say stuff, for me, if you want to spout, and you know what, listen, I like Ben Jacobs. He's dead on. We've had him on a good few times, and we're pretty cool and close with him. Other journalists, if you want to put something up, you want to spout something, you want to direct something at Newcastle. There's two things. First of all, some of it is for a reaction, and you know from us as a fan base, we're going to light you up. We're gonna come at you with comment, rudeness, anything we can fire back. So for me, it's about fact. So the fact for me, if you actually do your homework, is that yes, the Live piece, there was talk, and the whole piece around Yasser being a member of the Saudi government and a minister, and how can a reigning minister of the government, because the legally binding assurances was that the state of Saudi Arabia would not control Newcastle. First fact, even before the takeover, it is clearly stated on PIF's website. If you do your homework and you read it, Yasser Al-Rumayyan is listed on that as a sitting minister. However, not all sitting ministers of the PIF board are a minister of the ruling government of Saudi Arabia. Secondly, that fact was well known when the owners and directors tests were ongoing through the Newcastle takeover. Yeah. Thirdly, Yasser Al-Rumayyan passed those owners and directors tests. He was one of many who were tested, including the Rubens, Amanda Staveley, Maydad, and others that went through that. Same as Darren Eales will have gone through it. The same as Dan Ashworth would have gone through it. People that have joined the club at a board level and at a senior level. So they are facts that are out there. You can go on to the internet, you can research, you can have a look at it, you can pull all that up. So for me, why would the Premier League need to reinvestigate the takeover? Everybody has sat the tests. Nothing has changed. Al-Rumayyan's position has not changed. There is nothing that shows that the state of Saudi Arabia has any control over the club at all. So it's a non-story. So my issue with some of the garb that is coming out there is quite rightly, Pete, as you said, nobody's talking. I sent a few strongly worded texts to your man Carvey from Sky Sports, and I called him out on it on Twitter and said, when there was clips put up. There were Newcastle fans that put Twitter clips up that showed Carvey really spouting about the Newcastle takeover. It ain't going to happen. It can't happen. This, that, and the other. Human rights, this, that, and the other. Nothing mentioned about the Man United takeover. So that's my issue, is the double standards.
He's a bit of a prick, though, isn't he?
He is a bit of a prick. I didn't call him that. I didn't even use the C word, which is really, really good for me when I get wound up. I didn't. So for me,
you offered for Lent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, well, I don't know. Something going wrong. Yeah, I'll know tomorrow. So for me, it's the double standards. The facts are there, right? There are a lot of good people, a lot of excellent people in the Newcastle fan base on Twitter, right? And yes, it's only a very small percentage of people from the fan base. But what I would say, in particular, people who I follow, people who I know, the likes of like Kev Martins, people like that, other good people that know their shit. I'm trying to think of some other people I follow, but it's out there. It's in the public domain, and I think the real important thing for me, if you actually do the research, and George, who's come on our shows a good few times, will tell you. You look at the Premier League owners and directors tests, which are online. You can go and look at them line by line and piece by piece. There is no ruling in the Premier League handbook that says a state cannot own a football club. So what's the problem? There's no rule against it. Anybody that followed the takeover knows the issue wasn't about human rights. It wasn't about all the other stuff. The issue that had to get resolved was the piracy. When the piracy was finished, the deal went through. End of story. So my issue in calling out some journals and other people was, yes, I get your reporting on something. And I'll mention my new friend in a minute. It's the double standards. So yes, you want to take Newcastle to task and you want to keep generating these stories, knowing that you'll get a reaction or a click or whatever else, because Newcastle fans will react to it. But yet you stay silent on media streams about Man United. Qataris have as bad a set of human rights as anybody else. Nobody wants to talk about the deaths when they built the stadiums for the World Cup. Nobody wants to talk about it. Sky don't want to mention it. It's all this lovely love-in for Man United and get the Glazers out and everything else from a lot of people. And that is what drives me crazy. If you're going to report it fair and report it fairly across all streams for all clubs, because Chelsea have issues. Wolves have Chinese owners. Newcastle have Saudi owners. Man United have current American owners, soon to be possibly Qatari owners.
Most of the Premier League have got American owners. They're equally just as bad. Any
club that has an English owner, Scottish owner, the UK has its own human right problems. Get off the high horse. Go and learn your facts. All I ask for anybody that's in the media, and I would say, Pete, I would say the same if it was Jordan Cronin. I would say the same if it was Dom. I would say the same if it was the lads from the Chronicle, if it was Andrew, or any of the guys. Just please report it fairly.
Yeah.
Report it fairly. And give us the same, and give Man United fans the same, because the politics have changed now that they're going to get possibly their bit of Qatari money. Now all of a sudden the Human League, the Human Rights Human League, they're a group. The Human Rights piece, all of a sudden it doesn't exist. There's no call for amnesty.
We can play it.
Yeah, no, we should do. That could be a new bit of outro music. There's no shouts from amnesty. There's no shouts from anybody else. They're like, it's a joke.
Yeah.
So I had my little say, and then a journal put something up about the reporting. Now, to be fair, I probably went off with a loaded gun. Anybody that looked at my tweet, Martin Ziegler of the Times. Now, in fairness, I did go back to him. I just said, I think the reporting is one-sided. When are you going to talk about Man United? He came back to me on a message, and fair to him, he said, I'm merely reporting what was said in the committee. And to be fair, when I read his text back, that is what he reported. But when you go back over some of Martin's prior posts, he was very, very, very heavy on the Newcastle takeover not going through. And that was the issue I raised with him. I sent him a DM, had a bit of a chat with him, and I'm sure we may talk about it, but hopefully sometime in April, middle of April, Martin has agreed to come on and talk about all of this. Talk about why he did what he did. Talk about the tweets he sends out. And I've asked him to come on, give us a fair opinion of why reporting is currently one-sided, get his view on the Newcastle piece, and why does he think, from our perspective, I want him to understand why Newcastle fans get riled up by one-sided reporting. So in fairness to Martin, he's agreed to come on, and I'm really looking forward to that chat and to get his view on it. I'm not going to go at him and throw up a load of tweets to make him look bad, because it's not about that. But I want him to give us and he is a top journalist, you know, he's chief reporter for the Times. I want him to tell us why it's one-sided. Yeah. So, and I'm looking forward to what he's got to say.
Yeah, so. You know what? Great guest. Absolutely looking forward to coming on. At least he's going to come on and have that conversation. I've had, you boys know, I think it was last summer, I had a conversation with Miguel Delaney, and he had agreed to come onto the channel, and all of a sudden just disappeared. Didn't want to know. He doesn't want any of the backlash. So at least,
absolutely. In fairness,
Martin,
in fairness,
wants to have the conversation.
Exactly. And he came straight. I sent you boys a DM. He came straight back to me when I sent him a DM, and he went, "Yeah, love to come on." And I've gone back to him and I've said, "Look, we're not going to fire at you. Listen, I apologize if you took my tweet as a bit of a dig. I'm just frustrated with the way it gets reported." And he said, "Listen, we'll talk about it all. It's all good." So fair play to him. Fair play to him.
Fair play. We'll report that as having Martin join us.
Absolutely.
I'm still a bit pissed off. Miguel never joined us. I had a brilliant poster lined it up for him, but wasn't to be.
It still could potentially happen. Like, to be fair, it could potentially happen still. But maybe Martin coming on maybe opens that door again. And I'd love to have that conversation, because look, I think everyone in the chat knows, and we know as a panel and as a group of lads, that we're not here to throw people under a bus. We'll have a genuine conversation with anybody, and we'll come ready and prepared, as we always do for every show. So it's just a case of we need to, we want to get those opinions out with regards to Newcastle on behalf of all of us as fans.
Absolutely.
Fans.
And I think that was the point in dropping him a DM, Pete, because I want to give him an opportunity. There's a lot of people, like I had a lot of people in my tweet going, he's this, he's that, he's everything else and under the sun. Yeah, maybe. But let's give him a platform. Let's ask the questions, and let's give him an opportunity to respond. That's what we're all about. If you don't want to watch him, you don't like him, don't watch the show. If you want to hear what the guy's got to say, while the 4 or 5 of us put some questions to him, tune in, watch the show in a couple of weeks. Let's see what the guy's got to say for himself.
Richie, I'll come to you. Obviously, Marty's got into it in real good detail. Look, I'll be honest, and I said it right at the get-go. I try to stay away from this sort of stuff, because ultimately, all I care about is the fact that the Saudi PIF are owners of Newcastle United, and they are looking at the betterment of the club and the community in the city. That's all I care about. All the other stuff is a side story for me. So I've not really looked into this in a lot of detail. So Martin's gone into detail, and Mark is nailed a number of things that have helped me understand it a little bit more. But from your perspective, what have you gathered from all of this kind of meltdown and all this stuff that's been going on with regards to Richard Masters and the investigation?
I think it was just, obviously, it was as soon as he was got up in front of the DCMS, it was always going to be, a question that was going to be asked. And he's right that he can't comment on it, because he's, no one knew about the Man City stuff, no one knew about the Everton stuff until they were prepared to make charges against the clubs in question. So at the moment, it's all hearsay. Even if something has been proven in the background or they're looking into, it's all hearsay at the moment. I think one of the things, obviously Martin touched on, as you said, Pete, in great detail. That's one of the things I picked up on it. One of the things they said was that the PIF and the Saudi government wouldn't be in the day-to-day running of Newcastle United. That was one of the things that they were given, the assurances that they gave the Premier League. At the end of the day, they haven't. The people who've got the day-to-day running of Newcastle United are Darren Eales and the board. Oh, yes, Almiron's on the board, but he's not, it's Darren Eales that oversees the day-to-day running of the whole club. Yeah. He's one place. You don't want to turn around and go to, is it such and such who runs this one, or such and such have the oversee day-to-day running of this club, or such and such of this club? It's not, because every single club's got a CEO. And it's the same as a CEO of any company, not just football club. We're talking about any, huge big company or any smaller company. It's the CEO that runs the company, and that's what Newcastle technically are. They're a business, they're a company, and it's Darren Eales that runs it. And so that was the assurance, is that they've been cleverly worded when they say it. It's that they will not be involved in the day-to-day running of the club, and they're not. I think that sums it up pretty easy, really. And even the fact that Nick DeMarco has come up as well and says he doesn't believe it'll be challenged either because they haven't really got a leg to stand on as well. That's telling as well. We're coming from the best sports lawyer out there. And if they were to be charged, I don't think that the Premier League would fancy facing him in court again, because obviously we know the reputation that he's got. And sure enough, if he's already turned around saying they haven't got a leg to stand on, they'll have noticed his comments and the replies to his tweets and all this sort of stuff, and they'll be thinking, is it worth the hassle, really, even if we wanted to? I think that the PA have been a little bit. It's a difficult one in regards to the Live Tour, because obviously I'm not really a big golf fan and stuff like that, and I know it's this anti-competition thing again. That the PGA don't really want another tour coming along with big money and pinching the stars and stuff like that, and they're trying to have the monopoly. It's the Americans they didn't want to let us to the Premier League table, the Saudis, because the majority of the American owners, and it's the same with the PGA. It's the American based. We'll let them have the European tour. We'll let them have the Asian tour because they're not as competitive and there's not as much money as the PGA tour. But all of a sudden, a tour comes along with a lot more money, can compete with them, are taking their best stars away from them, and it's like, no, you can't come play on our tour. No. It's anti-competitive. They can't do it. I'm surprised. Al Rumingan hasn't rang up Nick DeMarco and says, "Do you fancy challenging this court case for us against the PGA Tour and stuff like that?" Because it would win hands down, to be fair. Or get Keith on board. I'm sure Keith, he's the anti-competitive guy, isn't he? He knows that to a T. Yasser's going to be on the floor to Keith, isn't he? So, but not to me.
The other thing as well, Rich, is Yasser has an overview on, but at the end of the day, really all he is the yes guy that signs a checkbook.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hasn't that been proven, though? Hasn't that been proven with the Isaac deal? And with the Gordon deal, like they literally go over to see him.
Every time they've done a stop off, which Amanda Ramey did last time with Darren Eales, which was off the back, I believe, of last year of the Saudi Arabian GP. And we made the Isaac signing.
And that's all his involvement has been in. And like Richie said, and quite rightly, Darren Eales is part of the day-to-day running, but even before Darren Eales came to the club, it was Mirdad and Amanda that did the day-to-day running. So he hasn't been involved in that, which is a really great point that ultimately we haven't deviated from. So there's no issue there. But Daz, you were going to say something.
Well, just on a few different things that were popped up there. One, back to Richie and Keith Parson. Look, Keith Parson only had one piece of paper to write that one letter, so he Keith out of it. It was a bit kind of foolish, maybe the word, to say one thing in the Live Golf case and to say something else to the Premier League. It's going to click. People are going to bounce on it, especially when there's so much noise about Live Golf and PGA Tour, and there was about the Newcastle takeover. So yeah, you could have thought that out a bit better. But yeah, it's a non-story. And as Richard Masters, our friend Richard Masters, says, no comments. Until there's a story, it's a non-story really, and there's no indication that they are looking into it. Look, they are busy on a number of different cases, and I'll link into one of my starred comments here from a renewed member, Neil, as well. Neil Calvert, back as a member of the channel. Welcome back, Neil. But yeah, Neil puts the question as about this ownership. He's kind of asking, is it deflecting away from the other facts like the Man City case, FFP issue, Everton finances, the whole issue around Spurs, and what they're going through as well, a few different things. So it's I don't think it's being pushed from that side of it, but yeah, it's altogether there's a lot happening. The Premier League have a lot on their plate at the moment. I don't think this is one that they'll need to bring back on the table again.
No, I think that's a great point. Definitely, and actually, you've raised a really good point that we hadn't yet talked about. That I'd not even really considered as a conversation tonight. Great points in there, Neil. I think it could quite easily be seen as a bit of a deflection for the Premier League to talk about, let's talk about Newcastle for a little bit. Nothing will happen, but what it will do, it will dampen down all the other news that's going on at the moment that actually is probably more pressing and more needing to be dealt with. First and foremost, Everton's finances. And that wasn't part of the agenda tonight, but let's make it part of the agenda. Everton's finances came out that they are 80 million above what they should be spending. I just think, look, the quicker they're relegated, the better, in my opinion. And I'm sorry to, I'm sorry to our man that joins us on away days. He's a great lad, but the sooner they go down, the better. Look, lads, from your perspective, like, what do you? Surely there's got to be some sort of points deduction for Everton. 80 million over what they should be spending. Like, they already oversubscribed their budget for COVID. That was like nearly 100 million more than any other club in the Premier League. Like, surely this is it now for Everton, that they need to be given a huge slap on the wrist and points deductions. What have you made of all this stuff that's happened with Everton over the last few days?
I jump in straight away, and I don't think anything will happen again. Nothing ever happens to the clubs in the Premier League. The only one I remember something happened to was Leeds get a points deduction, and that's where how they got relegated back in the day, and they had gone crazy on spending at back at that time. But no, that's the only one I ever remember in the top division getting a decent kind of a punishment. They all seem to get away with it or wiggle out of it, and it's unfair on the other teams then that got relegated instead of the likes of Everton if they're proved to be which is the case. You know, they are spending too much. They have spent too much in the past.
Mark, Richie, what are your thoughts on the Everton situation? Do you think there should be points deduction coming, or do you think it's going to be left till next season? What do you think the fallout's going to be on the back of this?
It can't be next season, because at the end of the day, it's happened in previous seasons. You know, it should be where it's implemented. That's it. You look at you go over to Juventus this season, where they got 15 points deducted this season. If you're charged and found guilty in that season, it should be applied there and then. Not, I'll tell you what, we'll let them stay in the Premier League until next season and they'll start off 15 points. But at the end of the day, then they've also gained an extra 120 odd million for staying in the Premier League for an extra year. What about the other teams who have abided by the rules, have played fairly, stuck within this, the FFP that they've been able to under hard times as well? Why should they be penalised because a team can't abide by the rules? End of. If they're found guilty, they should be relegated this season. Full stop.
Mark,
that's what I'm saying. The points should be applied this season.
I think
probably the way things are going, they would be relegated.
Yeah. I think. Look, there's got to be action. If there's not, then it's farcical. So if there's not going to be action, then for me, screw FFP. Let's just go and blow billions and blow the league out the water. It's that simple. So either take action, put the penalties in. There have to be docked points. And I agree with Richie. That's got to be done this season. because those irregularities are over this season. So I think, do you know what? I think, again, anybody on Twitter that follows Mitch, who's been on the show a few times, if you read some of the stuff he's been putting up, a lot of this stuff that's coming up now is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, there's bits coming up now about Chelsea, City, what 120 different charges for irregularities and sponsorship, you know, weirdness. And I think, you know, going back to the thing with Yasser, I think we will be very, very slow news day very, very shortly. But yeah, I agree. I would obviously, like you, Pete, I'd love to see Everton go down as well because I hate them. So yeah, I'd be happy. But yeah, if you don't do nothing and you don't do nothing with City and you don't enforce the rules, then what are the rules for? You know,
and why are we obeying the rules then? You know, like,
well, that's what I'm saying. So if they can go and blow 120 million, and it takes away, and you know, you go, well, they'd spent that, but look, let's just give them a 2-point deduction, but they could stay in the Premier League. Then we may as well just say that FFP is a joke, and it's not a real rule. So instead of Newcastle going, well, you know, we can't really go and spend 3 billion and go and buy all the top stars that we want to because of FFP. Well, no, you didn't do nothing with Everton, so let's just go and spend 2 billion and buy what we want, do what we want, because you didn't do nothing to them. So what are you going to do to us? If you're not going to back your own rules, then the rules don't exist. So Premier League have to make a stance, in particular with those two clubs and soon to be Chelsea. Otherwise, the league's a farce.
Yeah. You know what? You guys have said it, and I absolutely agree. Is that if they can get away with spending 80 million over what they should be and are just given a slap on the wrist for it, that will just make everyone in the Premier League think, well, if they can do it, so can we. And they will have the argument to go and spend the amount of money that Everton have spent and turn around and go, well, look what you did with Everton. And it will set a precedence then. And what it will do, it will just stick two fingers up to the FFP to make it clear that it's not working, that it's not doing what it's intended to do, in my opinion. And for me, you're absolutely right, Mark. If that's the case, let's go and splash the cash. Let's go and get, you know what? Let's not get the 4 first-team players that we probably need for next season. Let's go and get 6. Let's go and get 6. Let's push the boat out. Let's go and get 6. And then get a few
500 million.
Yeah. Let's go and do what Chelsea have done. Because if you're not going to punish them, Everton have spent over £500 million and are no better off. They're actually worse for it. They're worse off for it. The amount of money that they've spent, the amount of wages that they've pumped into that club, and they're no better off for it. We go and do the same, we end up going in a different direction because our owners are better and more organised. And it winds me up that, like, look, Richie, you made a great point. Everton should have been deducted points last season. They should have been playing the Championship this season. They got away with it last season. Now they're being made ultimately, up until this point, to get away with it again. And they're still in a relegation battle. At some point, you've just got to pull the plug and go, you know what? Your time's now. You've had enough. You know, get down to the Championship like the rest of us have been. You know, apart from the top 5, I think, that have not been relegated. They're one of the only ones. Get down there with the rest of us and do what we had to do and fight and scrap to get back up into the Premier League.
I think even if you take it on a very satirical, sarcastic viewpoint, Pete, if you went and you spent 120 million out of on your bank account of money that you didn't have, would you be dealt with?
Yeah.
So, you know, I know that I would be. I'm sure we would be in this country. I'm sure Richie would if he went and, you know, went and bought a load of stuff on hire purchase or did whatever, and you didn't have the money to pay. You'd be dealt with. And it's you know, either there are rules or there are not rules, and the rules have to apply evenly across the board to everybody, or the rules don't exist. So, you know, everybody, I would think, will be sitting there looking at this going, let's wait and see what happens with City and Everton. If nothing happens, you know, then it's exactly the same as the breakaway, the European League, the breakaway. They got a slap on the wrist. If these guys get a slap on the wrist for this, then do you know what? Fuck the rules.
Yeah, and that's the good point. Let me come to that, Martin, because one thing we want to go to JJ here. He goes, "We don't obey the rules. We're under investigation too.
Under
FFP is a
investigation
joke."
for
And
what?
so, exactly. That was my point. What are we under
What are we under
investigation for?
investigation
Nothing.
for?
The only thing that we were under review for was that HMRC thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was
that's been put to
a
bed.
few years ago, but
That's gone.
there's nothing in regards to FFP because
We haven't broken.
we hadn't
had any spend.
We made money over Mike Ashley's
Too
email.
little.
Maybe that's why we were investigated.
That's
Because
it.
we didn't spend any money.
JJ's just woken up from 1988.
I think, Joe. Go on, Dad. Sorry, you finish off.
Yeah, no, just linking to Martin was saying about the rules. Michael Palmer has come up with a great idea. If the punishment for FFP breaches is a max of 10 points deduction, what do you say? Screw it, let's break the bank. We'll take the 10 points and make it back in no time. Interesting. It's a bit of a gamble, but interesting.
Yeah, Neil Calvert's got a good point there. It says Everton with the losses, Everton were allowed to make a loss of 105 million over any 3-year period. And they've been charged for losing 371 million.
There you go.
So it's all, at the end of the day, it all comes down to numbers, how the accounts run, the time.
It's over 3.5 times more than they're allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sorry, guys. I'm not accepting, in my opinion, I'm not accepting a 3-point deduction. If that was in the Championship, someone like a Wigan or a Derby or whatever,
you'd be out of business possibly, and you'd be reverted back to the Conference League.
Yeah, you would be getting a 10, 12-point deduction.
Look at Port Vale.
There you go.
You know what I'm thinking?
With tradition.
You know what I'm thinking, Richie? I think it's time to make the call. Call Batman. you know who I mean.
I do, yes, I do. Our good friend, Mr. Maguire.
You're Robin to his Batman.
Kieran's story.
Get him on.
I think, Joe, I just finished off on this. Like the one thing that's the annoying thing for me on this matter, and obviously the Premier League looks like they've got a lot going on with Everton, with Man City, with Ivan Toney as well, is the fact that it takes them too long to do anything about it. That's the issue I've got. How long ago was Ivan Toney charged with some of the betting things that we're talking months and months and months before the World Cup? Before the World Cup, and he still hasn't had his ban put in yet. So that's ludicrous there. So technically, what was it? Look, lads, we're just gonna charge you this season. Everton, don't worry, you can still spend as much as you want over the next 3 years. We might get around to actually putting a deduction in then. But you might already be in the Championship by then, so the 15 points will only apply when you get back in the Premier League, if you've ever got enough money to actually get that back. Do you know what I mean? Just freaking stick them 15 points on now and be done with it.
No, and just want to come back to JJ, because JJ was trying to point towards the golf situation and the court case, saying that's why we're under investigation. But no, there's no, it hasn't been confirmed that there's any investigation. Now, who's not to say that something might happen in the future, but at the moment there's no investigation. And quote Richard Masters, no comment was the answer. So we're none the wiser.
Where have we heard that before?
Yeah, I've heard that once before.
Yeah, but also the investigation isn't about whether we were independent or not. It's about whether they would influence on the club.
Yeah.
So
technically, as Pete already mentioned before, the only influence they've really had is when they've come down to saying, "Look, we've got a chance to spend such and such an Alexander Isak. He's not in our budget now. We plan to do either, in next summer's time, but we can get him for this now. This." And then you just say, "Yes, what do you think? Should we do it?" And he just goes, "Yeah, do it." He pulls the trigger. That's it. He's the final decision maker on anything money related. That's it.
Yeah,
pretty much. That's what he's like. He's like Dad with the credit card, isn't he? Dad, can I spend this? Yes. Right, go bang.
Exactly.
Get Chris back on. He wants to hear that.
Apparently, guys, we've all frozen.
No, I'm okay.
There's people in the chat saying they've all frozen. So yeah, Lisa said it, Jules has said it. We're
it's all working on mine.
We're just standing really still.
We're just doing what the Premier League are doing with regards to these investigations, just standing still.
Yeah.
So is it working now or not? Can someone tell us?
Let us know. It might be a YouTube thing.
It's either a YouTube thing or a StreamYard thing, because all of us are active. It's usually just one of us.
Maybe it was JJ.
Oh, are we back? Gary's laughing. That was hilarious. But are we actually back? Someone put in the chat to let us know if we're actually
Well, let's
back.
check our phones. That's the only way we know.
Yeah, actually, Jules has sent me a message. Sorry, I didn't read it.
Yes.
You were too busy talking to your new friend, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
I think everyone's dropping. Everyone thinks it's over. It is now.
It's not over. It's
Yeah,
still
no.
going.
Well,
It's still
it is gone black. Yeah, and the can the
Oh,
guys
yeah.
hear us though?
Bacon and
It's got to be YouTube because we can see StreamYard working well on here. So
Yeah.
no, it's not. Look, there you go. There we are. There,
Yeah, blackout.
blackout.
Is it
Maybe we've
everything-
been cut because we're
sorry,
too controversial.
the Premier League have been watching and they've cut us off. They've had their word with YouTube and
Well,
Yeah,
lads,
we've just found out we've been hacked by Miguel Delaney, JJ, Martin Ziegler, and the Premier League, and
it's definitely
the Sa-
YouTube,
and the,
lads.
and the Saudi government, and everything.
It's definitely YouTube by the looks of it.
Oh, okay. Well, lads, we can keep going with the show because we can upload if it's
We can play it back, yeah.
To be
Worse comes to
fair,
worse.
they don't get to see our ugly mugs anymore, do they? That's a bonus for them.
Well, they can hear it.
Yeah, they can't see our ugly mugs. That's the thing. They
Well,
can
that's
hear
not a
us.
bad thing, to be fair. No, you're right. Right, well, come on, we'll crack on. Keep going. Keep going for another 20 minutes.
To be fair, there's one or two in the chat that are still saying they can see us and everything's fine. So, but the show goes on.
It's either the Russians or the Chinese.
Yeah.
Or the Evertonians.
To be fair, we talked about Wolves from a Chinese perspective. We've hammered the Russians from the Everton, so it's probably one of the two. And to be fair, it could be the Americans because
and to be fair, I've pissed about everybody else off, so it's a long and distinguished list.
Anything Newcastle related, they're going to hammer us for.
Yeah.
But no, look, let's keep. Hold on. Jimmy's put my YouTube is frozen, but now I hear Daz's voice making my ears bleed.
Thanks, Jimmy.
You know what you need to do? You need to do that thing now that everybody's in darkness. So anyway, now as we get towards our time for sleep, lay back, breathe in heavily through your nose and out through your mouth. Exhale and think wonderful thoughts of financial fair play, Everton being relegated, and Newcastle proving once again that our ownership is not state-owned. And relax.
You were meant to do that a year and a half ago.
We need the music. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, hang on.
Oh, hang on,
do it
we're
again,
back.
Martin.
42 Fly says we're back. James has got his site back.
Oh, I deleted all that
Martin
music.
says we're back. Jules says we're back. Craig Lee says Daz's internet is see you next Tuesday. Tom is only catching up, saying the internet is frozen.
Let's get down to business, I guess, guys.
Go tweet out and say we're back.
That's it. Yeah, we're back.
Okay, we're back. Okay, where were we? Right, I have another topic, lads. If we're done bashing everybody else there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I read an article today in the Chronicle. Lee Ryder, who we haven't had on the show, is someone we must get on the show at some point. But it was about feeder clubs again. But it talks about, and I know it's been talked about in a few different places, but potential for a Brazilian feeder club and the link up with a US-based firm 777 Partners. And that's a private equity firm with a strong portfolio that includes Genoa, part of Seville. In Belgium, you have Standard Liège, and in France, you have Red Star FC. So it's a kind of a link up there that instead of going to individual clubs and maybe forming links that way, that you partner with this 777 group and get to use them in that way. But and also another interesting point on this one is that Dan Ashford is interested in feeder clubs in Ireland. and Scotland. Doesn't say where or who. And Eddie Howe is, of course, he had mentioned this before about links with extending links with Gateshead. But what do you have you heard anything more about feeder clubs, or what's your thoughts? It's something that surely will come our way in time, and maybe a bit early yet, but it's on the horizon, I'd say.
I think it's something that they will go down. It's obviously the route that City went down, but it is from his prior at Atalanta in the US. Is it not something that Darren Eales set up with Atalanta? That some of the smaller they had feeder clubs feeding in, and they were taken from Mexico and from a few other places. So I think it is something that he tends to look at. But I think I would imagine we'll go the same way as kind of City did. That eventually you'll have a whatever they call it, whatever it is, entertainment group or sports entertainment group. I think you'll have something like that for Newcastle. That'll be PIF driven, and probably the Reuben brothers. They're big into that kind of sports entertainment piece. So I would imagine that's what we'll go down. We'll probably have 3 or 4 clubs probably there'll be feeder clubs from Europe, from South America, wherever we've got probably our main scouting. I would imagine we'll have stuff, possibly Australia or other places. So I think you'll see we'll probably link in about 5 or 6 clubs. Makes sense, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll get to that level as well eventually, where we start having, I like the City group we've got, where they've got their own individual team in each country. The 777 will work for the moment because obviously you can, as Daz mentioned already, you can build the links up now, but you don't necessarily have that competitive edge where where the UEFA competition is concerned, where you can't have say PIF owning 2 clubs in the same competition. Obviously, Red Bull had that issue with Leipzig and Salzburg, and that obviously they had to drop the RB off the Salzburg. It's just Salzburg SC now, so you can't, obviously that's the issue. If you look at Genoa, they're not really in the concern of UEFA competition, they're in the lower ends of Serie A. But the one issue where obviously it's slightly different, the 777 is you look at Sevilla. They've got a really good European pedigree over the last decade. They've won the Europa League several times now. I was going to say 2 or 3 times in the last decade or so. So, that's what it means. It's not going to be something where it's going to be a permanent move, where they're actually going to be part of the group going forward. Say if it was like, I don't know, the Project Zebra group or something. That was something that they used when they took over. But I can imagine we talked about it a month or so ago, I think it was, and we said about they'll probably go and buy a team like in Brazil, in America, and we use Atlanta United as one of the prime examples because obviously Darren Eales has got a good link up with them. The only issue with that is the guy who owns them. Obviously Jimmy would know more about this because obviously I think Seggy's in Atlanta as well. They've got to be a hell of a lot to buy the franchise itself. So it's the same owner of the Atlanta Falcons that owns them and stuff like that. So you might have to look elsewhere to a different team that hasn't got a huge, powerful owner like that. But we mentioned like having teams in like Brazil, Syria, or teams anywhere that wear black and white, keep the link there, sort of thing. We discussed in the A League in Australia. You've got Newcastle Jets down there. It's it's a link that you can obviously through your name sort of thing, and it's obviously they could bring up your next Garang Koalas and stuff like that. And there's loads I think Boa Vista. That's probably not a bad team in Portugal who are in the top flight. Obviously not pushing on for major European competitions, but they've got established history. I'm sure Boa Vista playing black and white as well. So just little links like that. That's the sort of teams you need to really be looking for, and not necessarily in the top flight. It could be someone with a lot of history that's been relegated, that's in the second tier or something like that. But obviously, still pick up, especially your younger players, not necessarily people who haven't got enough points, for your permit to go straight in. But like your younger foreign players that could go to Europe and pick up extra
I think the big thing for me, Richie, is we've got to do massive work with our academy because it's piss poor the players we're pulling through. And as much as it beguiles me to say it, we really need to look at what our neighbours next door in Sunderland are doing, because their academy and how they bring the youth through their academy is really, really good. If you look at the way the likes of Chris Rigg, someone's mentioning there, Alan's mentioning, some of those players that are coming through their academy setup at the Academy of Light is one of the best youth academies out there, and we need to look at that. Obviously, the rest of the club is shite, but their academy is really good. But that for me is where we're really poor at the moment. People talking about Shola's been working with the loans and everything else. He needs to be gone. He was kissing Mike Ashley's ass. His shithouse and just needs to be gone. But our academy and stuff like that is really where I want to see the club invest. I think, Pete, we were talking. Yes, you want to bring players in. Yes, people. Some of the fan base going, I wouldn't take McTominay. I would. He comes into the squad. He's okay. We'll see on Sunday if he's better than Longstaff or not. But again, it's building that squad, strength and depth. He's a good player. You add to it. You keep bringing in the youth and building that academy. So we're not always going to go out there and get another Isak or another Bruno. Hopefully we'll get some good signings again this summer. But that development has got to be at all levels of the club. And I think we need to, again, as part of the project, we need to remember that that's all the things that are going on behind the scenes, along with commercial deals, revenue, all the things where Mike Ashley absolutely butchered us on for 14, 15 years. So for me, we've got to look at setups, which I'm sure Darren Eales is doing, and Dan Ashworth. Look at what Dan Ashworth did at Brighton. Some of the players they've had: Cucurella, Moses Sisaido, the Japanese lad that's gone in there, Minamoto. Players like this, outstanding buys for very, very low fees that are now, top players. So we will get to that, but that's all through setting up development, youth team, under 18s. Our youth team went and played Sunderland, got beat 7-2 at the weekend. Hammered. But it's just a better setup, better youth team setup. And that development is where we need to get to. And we'll get the likes of the Andersons and what we used to have, the likes of the Gascoignes, the Waddles, and those kind of players. We will start to see those players coming through again in black and white shirts, along with the purchases, Richie, as you said, from South America. The ones that we've been going after that Chelsea have just been snapping up like wildfire. Chelsea, as much as people will have that rant about it, are actually doing what we need to do, which is go and invest in youth and start to build that youth policy up and in. Because in 5, Andres Santos might not get a game for Chelsea in the first team for the next 2 years. He might eventually. But I tell you what, when they start to mature and they come through the ranks, Jesus Christ, Chelsea got some kind of a team.
It's interesting you mentioned about obviously doing it is going to take time to actually build this academy up. But I don't know if you lads were aware this. Newcastle advertised 7 new jobs this morning for under 13 to under 18 scouts in different areas of the UK.
Yeah,
so that's obviously that they're putting a lot more money into the recruitment side of things and the development of the academy as well. And it's every single one of those is from the Yorkshire, the Northwest, West Midlands, East Midlands, Norwich, Southwest, Greater London. There's none in the Northeast because obviously we've got quite a lot of scouts up here anyway. But it's all to see over the end of this country. That Newcastle Elite Academy, they've got links. They've got a partnership with Chelsea. Why don't Chelsea coming up to Newcastle and having links with, an elite academy up here? That should be linked with us. It should, it's ridiculous that Chelsea are coming up here and potentially taking our talent. It should be going straight into our club and not leaving the area. Realistic, if we're doing things properly, and hopefully, and obviously Dan Ashworth will be on the ball with this. He'll make sure that people are coming to this club before they go anywhere else, especially leave the area going forward.
You've got to have the setup, though. You've got to have that setup in place.
It's got to start somewhere, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's like anything. You build it and they will come.
Well, that's it. They went and took Elliot Dickman from Sunderland Academy, didn't they? Okay, he's left now. It didn't work out, but he's bringing any of the ideas that Sunderland actually implemented in what actually established them as having the best academy in the Northeast. So he hasn't worked out on the coaching side of things because he might not have the same coaching philosophy as Dan Ashworth, as Eddie Howe and stuff like that. But he could have implemented small little changes to the actual academy itself, which can be, built on going forward. Because it's not, obviously the first teams. Let's be honest, lads. We've ran a lot quicker than we were expecting to. Really, realistically, everyone says you've got to be able to walk before you can run. We've ran really pretty much since Eddie Howe's come in, and since the January transfer last. That's not going to happen with the academy. You are literally getting technically our academy because obviously we dismantled it under Keegan. Remember, we didn't have it. You got rid of all the reserves and stuff like that, which is probably the one bad thing that ever happened in that era, getting rid of the academy because. Up until then, you look at the production line we used to have in the late 80s and before that, your Gazas, you've got your Chris Waddles, your Beardsley's, your Steve Watsons, your Lee Clarks, your Robbie Elliott's, got the Steve Howie. Do you know what I mean? There's loads coming through, but it's this, now if you look realistically now, you go through our squad since what the 1995. How many Geordies have realistically come through our academy? You can talk like Paul Dummett, Steve Taylor. You can look at Andy Carroll. I've got to mention Andy Carroll, or Chris will kick off. But it's, do you know what I mean? There's you probably count on one hand the amount of talent we've probably come through in the 25 years, realistically. And it's not good enough. So technically, what they're getting as an academy now is technically like a newborn. You've literally got to teach it and build it, everything. And that's the problem. We're literally starting from scratch.
Yeah. The one thing I was going to add to that is that, and this is from a sort of girls' football perspective, my daughter, she's in her first year playing, and she goes to this academy training once, like they have like a four-week program every so often, and when she goes to that training, there are other training sessions that are taking place, and you've got like Chelsea, you've got like London clubs like Reading and clubs like that are training up in Leicester. So they've got their scouting network far and wide. It's not just based in the Northeast. And you talked about Chelsea. Why are they coming up to the Northeast? Because for 15 years, we were neglected. So they were just snapping up any good young player. You look at Shola, is it Shurater? The young lad that ended up going to Man United. Off the back of things. He should have been in our first team now, and he probably would have been given an opportunity. But he's been swallowed up by Man United because we neglected him because of our previous ownership. So that's a perfect example of someone that should have got given an opportunity, that was good enough to be given an opportunity, but went elsewhere because he didn't feel that the club was going in the right direction. What we need to do is spread ourselves far and wide and get players all over the country, some of the best, to come up. Like Man United, for example, David Beckham's a perfect example for Man United. They plucked him from London, from down south. They plucked him from there.
So you go the other way. Look at Michael Carrick.
Exactly.
There's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, example for me.
Alan Shearer.
Yeah. Shearer went to Southampton because the youth team setup was better. Exactly.
Michael Carrick.
Better doorway. I just said that, Richie. You
sorry, I was reading the comments in there, mate. Sorry.
You have to be able to multitask, Richie.
But both of those players you're both absolutely right, is that they are the classic examples of two players that have had fantastic careers.
It's where that pathway is to the first team. Exactly. That they know they're going to get that development and an opportunity.
Hang on, Pete, because you just glossed over. You mentioned your daughter doesn't just play football. No, you have to tell the full story there. You tell her about her achievements this year in the season.
You know what? Super proud of her. She's been brilliant. She's in the national cheerleading competitions all over the country. She last one performed at the NEC in Birmingham. This is her first season in football, and she scored like 20 plus goals already this season. Super striker. I don't know where she gets it from. I don't know where she gets it from.
We may know in April for definite.
It could go either way.
We'll know for sure, pal.
Yeah, definitely. But no, she's done really, really well, bless her. She's absolutely smashing the football and loving it. She's involved in hockey, basketball, table tennis. She's just doing everything, cross country, the lot. And she's excelling in all of it. But she's taken, since I took her to her first game against Leicester at St James's Park last year. She's really took an interest into football. She's gone into football off the back of that. She's loving it. She's watching every game that we all watch. Every Newcastle game, she wants to watch it. And you know, that's the great thing about it. But
did the Lionesses like help with that as well, though, for her?
Yes, to a point, but we were away, so we missed a lot of it when it was on. We were in Turkey on holiday.
Turkey, yeah.
We didn't get to watch any of it. Like she watched the final, and she watched the final and the scenes and everything that went off the back of that. But it was watching Newcastle. Don't start. Don't start. We'll see.
I actually think the next one is even better.
What's it say?
Yeah, I saw that one.
Michael
You lot are a bunch of knobs, I'll tell you what. You're a bunch of knobs, a lot of you. But no, in all seriousness, no, she gets it from me. That's where she gets it from. But although Lee was a quality player, he was a quality player.
I think also when Pete says me, he means Pete's wife.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. She's not. You know what? She doesn't even like football. She's not even into football. Like how we have been together for so long, I have no idea because I'm obsessed with it. She completely hates it. But no, Lee was a good player. One of the best defensive midfielders I've ever played with.
And look, there was we'll link it in because someone did ask a question about Lee. When's he coming back on? I imagine it's for in the summertime with their fully loaded transfer shows. Yeah, and again, people are asking when we. Yeah, it was 32 for life, of course. Was asked.
Shock. Lee will come back on. In fact, I'm going to see him. I'm not seen him for quite a while. Although I spoke to him the other day, but he will come back on whenever we want him to come back on. He loves coming on loaded. He's enjoying his stuff with Sky at the moment. Really, really enjoying it. He's got to meet a lot of great people. Of course, he works with Pete Graves mostly. He'll be on in the summer. There's no doubt about that. And he's been keeping an eye on. I've not really spoken to him too much, but he's been keeping an eye on a lot of the French football and a lot of the players that we've been linked with. One or two that are in the pipeline for a brief discussion later on in the show.
Cool. Do you want to go through some questions that we might have, lads?
Or we could segue to what Richie's just mentioned in the private chat.
Oh yeah, go for it, Richie.
What was that?
Well, no, it's
I didn't read that.
It's Pete's little baby, isn't it? So
No,
we'll let Pete.
No,
Go on, you mentioned it, mate. You mentioned.
Well, I think. Well, there's been. Yeah, I think Pete definitely needs to link that in, but I think we should also just reconfirm the plans for April because there's been a couple of people asking, "Are we still over in April?" There you go, Neil Calvert. So yes, Pete will talk about his little piece in a minute. But yeah, we are all over. We are all meeting up for the Southampton game on April the 30th, which has been moved to the Sunday. Myself and Daz fly in from Dublin on Saturday morning, the 29th. I think
That's
it is.
right.
We fly. We've even got seats next to each other on the plane, so if it goes down, they'll be able to identify us both out of the
Thanks,
Irish
Martin.
Sea.
Thanks,
Oh,
Martin.
yeah. It'll be grand. We'll be flying. What else can we? Sure, we can fly a plane. Fuck, we can't be that hard. Autopilot. It's only 2 buttons.
Yeah.
Father Jack can do it. I'm sure we can do it. So we are, all joking aside, we are all over. And we will be in for the game, and we'll be out for a few beers and a bite to eat on Saturday night and stuff when we're over. So yeah, we'll keep you posted, but we've got a bit more than just that going on. So I'll hand over to my colleague there on the top left, and he will tell you a bit more about some of our shenanigans while we're over there.
Definitely. Look, the battle is on. That's all I'm going to say from an early point of view. But we have been working alongside Newcastle Fans TV very, very closely. You know, from the United shows on Loaded that we work very, very closely with them. Lee, Johnny, Sam, and Beth fantastic people to work with, and we're delighted to announce that we are going to be taking part in our very first charity football match.
And last.
I was just going to say probably my first and only 5 minutes.
So to talk about in a little bit of detail, the 29th of April in Newcastle at the Newcastle NUFC Foundation, which is a great place to play this charity match. We are going up Loaded Mag NUFC versus Newcastle Fans TV. It's going to be a battle. There's going to be, I'm sure, plenty of goals.
Injuries.
Although Rich might disagree with that because he'll be our Shay Given or our Nick Pope.
Dick Pope.
We will be looking to secure Champions League football whilst we're playing. So
Why not?
In all seriousness, why are we doing this? The reason why we're doing this is to raise money for the Newcastle United Food Bank, the NUFC Food Bank. So we're going to be raising money for a fantastic cause. Both channels coming together and doing something for the community of Newcastle. So you will hear in the next 4 weeks lots of talk about the Newcastle United Foods Bank. There'll be a page where you can donate. There'll be a maximum target, but if we can get beyond that, that'll be amazing, and more details will come out about that. And it's just to have a little bit of fun with a channel that we really get on well with, and we're gonna have a bit of a laugh, and we're gonna have a kick around with the ball. It's a great way to go up there in Newcastle and be all together and just kind of celebrate that alongside raising a little bit of money. So, look, there can be spectators that come and watch. So if you're around during that time, and more details about the timings and all the rest of it will come as the weeks go on, please come and show your support. But most importantly, help us and donate to the page when the page is up. The page will be up in the next few days, so we will let you know when that's available. Come and donate and show your support for the Newcastle United Foods Bank. And if you're around on that weekend, on that Saturday, come and show your face. It'll be great to meet you all as we're kicking the ball around and dropping like flies every few seconds. Just to add,
and if any of you are a doctor, that would really be fucking appreciated from me and Daz, because we won't leave in the last 10 minutes.
If we survive the plane journey, of course.
Yeah. No, it's fine. We can fly, Daz. Me and you, pilot and co-pilot.
Yeah, your plane's going to be delayed all of a sudden, isn't it, lads?
Bloody hope not. Otherwise, it's going to be a rush to the foundation.
If it is delayed, and it better not be, by the way, we do have, and we're not going to announce who these are. We've got a few new members that we've added to the squad, to the match day squad. So we've got a few faces that you will know very well that will be added.
James Madison.
Yeah.
Shelby's back.
I'm working on James Madison. Hopefully he can come and join us and sign the deal while he's up there. Why not? But yeah, you'll have a few familiar faces that will be part of the squad. So it'd be great to see faces if you can come and join. But yeah, the charity match, Loaded Mag NUFC versus Newcastle Fans TV, 29th of April, the day before the Southampton game. The Loaded boys are up. We're all together. We are the
First time ever.
And we are going to...
I was going to say, does Jules actually realise that it's a bank holiday Monday then, just in case? It's obviously, she said has to work on the Monday. It is a bank holiday Monday that weekend. So
it is bank holiday Monday. So yeah, hopefully that changes things, Jules, and you're able to make it and able to join us. But look, lots more information coming out, all for a fantastic cause. More details on where you can donate to the cause. And look, we're all looking forward to it. That's for sure. And it's just, you know what, it's just going to be a great laugh. It's going to be a great laugh being together as a five. It's going to be a great laugh having a kick around, having a beer or two afterwards, and raising a lot of money for a fantastic cause. So that's the
looking
plan.
forward to it. I'm really looking forward to getting over the weekend, because I've obviously, despite the fact me and Daz are in the same country, we've not even met up yet.
I've avoided them this long.
Of reasons.
Huh? I've avoided you this long. Now I have to
I'll just see you in the seat when we get on the plane. I'm sure we can avoid each other at the airport big enough. But yeah, no, so I'm really looking forward to catching up with everybody, and in particular catching up with Daz. I've met obviously Rich, but Pete and the boys, and then obviously when Pete threw up the idea of the game and stuff, it's a good crack, and as he said, it's for a really good charity and gives us an opportunity to do a little bit, and for you guys to come up and catch us and get Daz to sign autographs and all that kind of stuff while he's there. Should be good. Looking forward to it. Be a good laugh. I'm looking forward to the total weekend. Looking forward to getting out, a few beers, bite to eat, the match on Sunday. Not looking forward to the red-eye flight back home on Monday evening with Daz, in whatever state we are. We might need aided assistance to get back through the airport with our legs, Daz.
Yeah. Have to drive home after that.
It'll be roll on, roll off, so don't worry about that. And Michael Palmer said their crew is a little bit younger than ours. We're going to need some ringers. We haven't got some ringers. We've got some squad members.
We've got squad members
that are going to come in. You know, we're not just a family of 5. We've got a squad. Okay, and so we're coming.
It's an extended family, Pete.
Yeah, great point. So, look, more to come on that. So keep your eyes peeled.
Just say if you want to let, obviously, I know you've mentioned times. Obviously, it's still available. But Mark, it will be daytime, not nighttime. It will. There's not a cat and else chance we'll be playing football on a Saturday night in Newcastle. I'm telling you that.
Oh, that's fine.
We are out.
And
out.
John, just as well.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of these flowing.
We've mentioned
a few people have always asked as well. I've had a few messages and a few DMs about what are we doing on the Saturday night. Haven't really decided. I know one thing is, though, I think the 5 of us are going out for a bite to eat. Cinema, yep, that'll do. Chill, Netflix and chill. Yeah, no, I think yeah, exactly. I think after the footy and stuff, at some point, once we're showered and changed, the 5 of us are going to go out and get a bite to eat together, and then we will go out and have a few drinks somewhere. Nowhere really decided. Somebody did mention Wonder Bar, and somebody also mentioned Cheers. Somebody said somewhere else. Someone said the Strawberry, but we as a 5, I don't think we've really decided anything yet. Obviously, Richie is our man on the ground locally, so if we do sort anything, he will probably be the man, and we'll let people know what we're doing. But yeah, we'll be going out, the 5 of us, to get some food and stuff and have a good ouchie and wag together.
Cool. Sounds good. Looking forward to it already.
Yeah, me too. Is that it then? Right. Good night. Thanks for watching.
I wanted. Was there anyone else that wanted to raise anything? Bring it.
No, I'm good. I've enjoyed tonight.
No AOB.
I wanted to talk about. Look, we're going transfer related here, so I apologise for switching gears slightly. Obviously, we've talked about him already, but there are links that are not going away with this man here. Martin, you've already had your opinion on Scott McTominay. Yep. You're not necessarily against the signing, whereas it has been quite split in the fan base. What are your reasonings for maybe that stance right now?
I think there's a couple of things, mate. I think there's obviously interest from Eddie Howe, and I think McTominay is an Eddie Howe kind of player. I think the difference between the fan base is people look at it and go, he's no better than Longstaff. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. What I'm looking at with signers is, does he improve the squad? Does he improve what we've got there? So, one of the things that we spoke about when we got rid of Shelby and then Joe Linton got banned and we thought Bruno got injured, we were going, shit, we've no midfielders. So for me, that's a situation that could happen at any point, in particular with the likes of J7, who likes to get a tackle in. Bruno has had, kind of the ankle injury and the foot injury. We can get those at any point. And I think the thing for me is if we get a European slot, we're going to be challenging on possibly 4 different fronts next season. So for me, he adds quality and depth to the squad that we don't currently have. Is he better than Longstaff? I'm not saying he is or he isn't. He can finish. You've seen that from what, 4 goals in 2 games. And I know people are going, sure, 4 games doesn't make him a great player. He's given up dross, but he's also been played out of the wrong position at times for Man United. The reason he can finish is because through his youth development and his time as a youth player, he was a striker. So he knows how to strike a ball. He certainly has a knack of knowing where to be when a ball comes into the box, which some of our midfielders don't always have. So to me, he adds quality, he adds depth. He's better than some of what we got. And if we're going to challenge on four fronts next season, we need all of those things and the likes of those attributes that he can bring. So for me, he's a signing worth having.
What good question here from Mark Todd. What do you think is a fair price for him? And he also points towards they've messed this around in the past on United.
They have, and there's questions about do we do any business with Man United because of the whole thing with with Lingard and everything else. Somebody said to me today, after his goal is probably going to be worth 60 million now. Someone said that the valuation was around 40. I don't think he's worth either of those two, if I'm honest. I think if you could get him for 30, 35, maybe, I think is probably a decent deal. Would you pay 40 for him? I probably wouldn't. But again, it depends on, we don't set the prices. So what's the going price for an international midfielder? I don't know. If you're talking 60 for Maddison, we're talking about interest in Kelvin Phillips and some of these other players. We're talking about, Thuram is another name mentioned again tonight on a lot of Twitter. So, it depends what you bring in, but you're probably going to be paying in that region anyway. I would think, 40 is probably going to be the minimal kind of number that's probably going to be bandied about, I would think. But again, from a point of us as fans, we don't set the price. If Eddie wants him, then I would kind of agree with some of Pete's statements from earlier in the season, which is if Eddie believes he's a player to bring in, I trust his decision. And if it's okayed by Ashworth, then I'm all for it. And as Daz said, we're not going to bring in loads of youth and build that into that team. We still need some proven Premier League experience, but players with that on top of, if you go for McTominay, I'd still like to see us go for Maddison. I'd still love Maddison to be our first one. Will we go for Diaby? Will it be Thuram? Who's to know? I'm sure they've got their lists and their plans. I see Sean Casey's in the chat. He probably knows more than we do. But it's about adding that depth to the squad that if we get injuries or we get that we're challenging on four fronts, we've got squad depth. And I believe that McTominay brings that. So, look, 40 million, if that's the price, that's the price. We don't set it, but you got to pay what the current market value is. And it may be inflated and people will go, he's fucking not worth that. But then there was people when we bought other players went, Isaac's not worth that. Bruno's not worth that. So, you know what? We don't set the fucking prices, but look, it is what it is. Does he add strength and depth? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will be my view.
Richie, from your perspectives, because there's a few other players that I wanted to talk about as well. McTominay, is he your cup of tea? There's a few in the chat that are going, I can see squad player, I can see what Martin's saying, and agree with Mark. There's some that are going, no, they're not willing to. And we've already said this. He definitely splits the fan base. But from your perspectives, are you taking him? Are you not? What are you thinking?
I'll be very quick here, Richie. I was very harsh on him, and I've kind of started watching him in a bit, and this is before he started scoring goals. He's not as bad as I thought he was, but if Eddie Howe wants him and he thinks he can get something out of him, bring him in. But it wouldn't be top of my list. I'd look elsewhere, and I think that Man United won't let him go now either because he's of the run of form he's in. But we'll see. At least it'll make it more awkward if we were potentially going for him. So
does he become a cheaper option? Does he become a cheaper option than a Maddison that allows Bruno to push further forward and McTominay sits a bit deeper?
Yeah, there's others as well. I'm sure out there as well. So I'm on the fence with him. I was completely against him, but now I'm on the fence.
I think for me, it's like what Martin said. Does he give you squad depth? Yes. Obviously, we know centre midfield. We are light for bodies because obviously, we've only got the 3 centre midfielders realistically. We didn't replace Shelby after obviously. He went, and obviously we've got Joe Litton who's covering there as a fourth, but obviously he's not an out and out centre midfielder if you were to go through the squad list and obviously what he was bought for, etc. For me though, and this is the big thing, I don't want to be technically strengthening a rival with 40 million, if that's what the possibly the price could be for him, for a player who doesn't really make their team, because that's going to be strengthening, Man United even more. Especially, obviously, it's something that there's talk about an ownership battle now. Obviously, the potentially new owners coming in, so that could be more money coming into the club as well for them. I don't want to be strengthening their hand. It looks like the way the top four is possibly going, it could be obviously us and Man United for the third and fourth spot. Hopefully, that's how it's going to be. I don't want to be strengthening them even more for next year as well, because we know Chelsea are going to be stronger, obviously, next year. Liverpool won't be as bad next year. See, you look at it, obviously, the way Spurs are going, Spurs could be anywhere next year. Because obviously the talk that Harry Kane could be on the move, he's pretty much carried them for the last, God knows how many years, really, pretty much since he's broken the team and started scoring goals for them. But for me, I don't want to be strengthening a rival. That's something I just don't want to be doing. We're not at the ilk of Man City yet, where we can sell someone for, say, 50 million, and then you can bring someone in for the same, or it doesn't really weaken your, there's talk that they're going to be getting rid of people like Gundogan and possibly Bernardo Silva. I'd rather be getting someone like that for our midfield and strength and depth and stuff like that, rather than bringing McTominay in. Because the way that the Man City seem to sell at a reasonable price, obviously, I'm not, for what goes out sort of thing. So, if you were to turn around and say, give 40, 50 million for McTominay or 40, 50 million for possibly Bernardo Silva, I know where I'd be spending the money on, and it wouldn't be McTominay. But to be fair, I wouldn't be looking at any of Man like this, full stop. They'll do exactly what they did with Jesse Lingard. They'll try to over prices and knuckle down on it and stuff, and just not for me. I think days have gone past of dealing with Man United.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I don't want to put any more money into Man United's coffers for them to go and spend on players next season.
I get that. I'm just merely rating the player, Pete.
No.
I'm not saying I do the business. I'm just saying I think he would be a good squad addition to what we've got.
And you know what?
Purely on the player.
My or Richie's opinion with regards to giving that Man United money is irrelevant, because, as we've said, and I've said it continuously even before the January transfer window, these McTominay links haven't gone away, and they've not gone away for a reason. There are certain players. There are certain players that Newcastle have been linked with that have been and gone, and nobody's talked about it again. The 2 or 3 players that have been continually linked with Newcastle United are James Maddison, Moussa Diaby, and Scott McTominay. They are the constant links, and at some point, you have to think to yourself, why are we continuing to be linked with Scott McTominay? All of our initial reactions were like, what is going on? Like, why are we linked with him? Like, he's surely not the guy that's going to take us forward. But the links keep going, and at some point, you then think to yourself, okay, well, why is he being continually linked? Is it something that they've looked at that we're missing? And it's clearly something that Eddie Howe wants in a player that Scott McTominay has. Now, someone in the chat talked about it. He's 6'3", 6'4", big strapping young lad, 26 years old, can get around the pitch really well, can score from distance, as he's proven. As you mentioned, Mark, you put it in the chat last night. He can score from distance. He can get and nick a goal. The one thing that's continuous with me with regards to Eddie Howe is he loves British-based players. He doesn't go abroad unless he really has to. He did with Bruno Guimaraes, and he's done it with Sven Botman. But if he doesn't need to go abroad, he won't. He'll stay and work with British players. And he proved it at Bournemouth, and it didn't always work out for him. But it's worked out for him so far at Newcastle with the British-based players that he's brought into the club. And I just think, regardless of what I think about this, Eddie Howe will make the decision. Now, one thing I will say, I do believe Scott McTominay is on the list, but I do believe that he's further down on the list than we think he is.
Yeah, that's what Sean Casey's in the chat there. He says he's an option only if we don't get Europe.
Okay, fine. So there we go. So it might well be the case that he's further down on that list, and there are other players that we could potentially be linked with. And look, there are other centre midfielders that are out there. I'll throw one up for you. Graham Bailey, friend of the channel, been on a number of times. He's put on there. I think that was today. Calvin Phillips ready to leave Man City this summer. A host of clubs will battle for his services if he does exit the Etihad. And in his article, along with James Spencer, there is Newcastle are linked with him. And Newcastle are one of the front runners to be going after a player like Calvin Phillips. From your perspective now, boys, when I throw Calvin Phillips in the ring, are you going with Calvin Phillips? I've talked about his injury record, but with that, who are you going for on the back of that potential bit of movement?
I've said this when we talked about Calvin Phillips before. He was when the takeover went through. He's that sort of player where you were looking at you would walk into the Newcastle side. Now the interesting thing you've got now is he's played more minutes for England this season than he has for Man City all of the season. That's a huge telling point for Calvin Phillips about how long he's been out for. For me, the only way we would go for Calvin Phillips is if it was a loan deal for the season, with a potential option to buy or obligation to buy if that was the case. There's no way you're going to be, forking out. Bear in mind, they paid 50 million from last year. You're not going to be. I don't think you'd be getting 50 million this year again because obviously his injury record. But I wouldn't be wanting to be spending that sort of money on someone who's injury prone anyway. That's why you'd have to have the loan, so he's got that 12 months to prove his fitness. Obviously, that, as you mentioned before, Pete, he's got that lingering shoulder injury where, if he has one more injury in there, that could be bye-bye sort of thing for any potential professional career going forward because of how the severity of what it was in the past. So for me, you only take him on a loan, that's it. There's no way you can be splashing that sort of cash on someone that injury prone.
For me, yeah, I'd park Phillips for now. The whole injury thing is a bit worrying. And as I said it on about 2 shows, and I said it to Dan Lawless as well. We got top 4. Bring me Declan Rice. Arsenal are linked to him with them as well, but they'll probably go back in for Moise Caicedo. So bring us Declan Rice. That'll be nice, tasty.
That would be nice. It'd be a big transfer though. Potentially big transfer.
Rice and Madison.
Well, there you go.
Rice, Madison, and Diaby.
That would be some super business. There's 3 players there that instantly come into your first team. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But one of the links that's come about today, and he's called up for the French squad over the international break, is Khéphren Thuram, and we've talked about him in the summer. We talked about him again in January. It looks like, and the Athletic have reported, obviously this is Get French Football, that Newcastle are interested in the French midfielder. He's made his debut for France. That will add a few pennies onto his transfer fee. But at 22 years old and just kind of finding his way in football, he has certainly made a mark. The fact that we know the big pool of French players that are out there, just to be called up to the French squad at that young age in his almost his breakout season is a big step. And a lot of people have been talking on social media today about Khéphren Thuram and saying, I'd love him as a player. We don't know too much about him compared to some of the other players that we just talked about, McTominay and Phillips. We do watch on a regular basis in the Premier League, but Khéphren Thuram could be a top young player. So it's just one maybe to keep an eye on.
To be fair, the other thing to watch out for, we mentioned Thuram, is it going to be a double Thuram deal in the summer?
Well,
good point.
2 Rams for the price of 1.
Hey, you see him all week.
Yeah,
I love it.
Did you just make
it would be because one of them's on a straight.
That was off the cuff, Daz. Sorry.
I'm looking forward to that flight already.
If anybody knows a comedy club for that Saturday night, we're over. I'm happy to get up.
That is one for recording. That is,
yeah. Just on Khéphren Thuram, yeah, he is a player we've mentioned a few times, and the first time it was mentioned was when the chap that was in the chat earlier when Sean mentioned it, because I have that clip. If whatever comes through, we'll be playing a bit of that. But yeah, he's a good player. We looked at him in the past. Decent.
So we'll have to keep an eye out on that one. You just touched on Madison, Martin. I've not put it up here as a picture or anything, but
when do we not mention Madison, Pete?
Well, of course, we haven't mentioned Madison. So Lisa, thank you very much for kind of segueing me into it. Why not talk about him just as we're in the process of wrapping up the show? James Madison, read it in the Leicester Mercury 2 days ago. It was reported in the Mercury that Newcastle United had gone as far as talk to Madison about the position that he's going to potentially play in for Newcastle United next season. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But why the Mercury, the Leicester Mercury, the local paper here, are talking about that, I have no idea. Equally to that, in the last day or so, Callum Wilson's talked about Madison in a little bit of detail and actually said, you know, he can't see him staying at Leicester very much longer. And, you know, he's a top player and he's going to be looking at that move away. So let's watch this space. None of this is guaranteed. It's all kind of opinion based. It's all based on reports that are out there. But there's a few transfers there that are going to keep you interested.
We've said on a few shows, and I still believe Madison will be the first one through the door in the summer. I'm confident he will be a Magpie.
Has to be for me.
Yeah.
Has to be, because he's not going to be one that's not going to be.
I think he's already decided.
I would love to say that that's true, Mark, but he's not going to be one that's not going to have interest from other clubs, and so.
No, but I think he sees the big picture, and I think the likes of Wilson, Trips, Pope, players like that, I think have been getting at him.
All I'll say is that signing show that we have. If he signs,
24-hour show.
You may bring another bottle of brandy, pal.
Oh, I'm going to town on it. I'm going to town. That's all I'm going to say. If we get Madison, that's going to be a happy day. And I've got one of my really good friends that I went college with, play football at college with. He's one of the physios for the Leicester first team, and he's very, very good friends with Madison. I keep seeing on his Instagram all the times he's out partying and he's hanging around with Madison. I'm going to be in touch to try and get some inside information with regards to it. I'm going to be on it. I'm going to be on it if that materializes. But let's wait and see.
So the Leicester Mercury is a real paper. It's not like fictional, like the Daily Planet or something like that. No, it's a real paper.
It's fictional.
No,
Pete just made that shit up. I actually thought it was a really good name for a newspaper. Yeah. I totally fell for it. I thought it was cool.
The Leicester Mercury is a real paper. It's the local paper. It's the local paper. It's been around since before I was born. But yeah, Leicester Mercury. That's where it was put out. I did have a picture of it, but the link will be there. You'll be able to find it somewhere. So let's keep an eye on those things. Just little tentative ones before we go. Joe Gomez, the Anfield Watch have said that Newcastle are looking at him. I'm not quite sure, if I'm honest with you. And another one, Lee's noticed this young man, Graham Bailey's mentioned him again. Arsenal and Newcastle linked with Ismail Decore, a young right back as such, but plays anywhere across that defensive line for Strasbourg. Breakout season, 19 years old. Only played a few games, but looked very, very impressive. And a number of teams, including PSG and Arsenal and Newcastle, looking at him. So just one to keep an eye on, maybe for the summer, maybe not. Who knows? But Graham Bailey's wrote that report today. I just want to finish on, just before we go, this picture's been around a lot recently on social media, and it's kind of drove me mad a little bit. But I just want you guys to have a think. What is your opinion that would cause a riot within the fan base? I want to know or get a feeling of what is there in a particular opinion or a point that you want to say that might cause a bit of a riot in the fan bases.
I've got mine.
I just wanted to throw it out there. People in the chat, get yours in there that might cause a bit of a riot or a bit of a discussion. that was kind of my ending thought, really. So
if Richard Masters said something other than no comment in relation to Newcastle, that'd cause a bit of a riot. But yeah,
that's a good one. Richie, what's yours?
I don't know. There's some good ones just come in the chat there. Someone saying Bruno getting sold. Steve Bruce 3.0. I don't think that's ever going to be that.
As being the Tannoy speaker at NUFC, that I could live with. Bruno leaving. There's a few saying Bruno leaving.
I don't know. I think the one thing that it's caused most issues with fans since it's probably been tickets.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, season tickets. We had the cup final tickets, and now you're going to have the safe standing from next season, 1,800 in the Strawberry Corner. So it's like people are going to be arguing. So, well, do they want the safe standing in that area? Do you know what I mean? I know I wouldn't be. I think a lot of the noise comes from the Strawberry Corner, and a lot of them stand up there over there anyway, so it makes no difference. But to just obviously be told to go in there, you might not want it. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those sort of things. Well, I think tickets probably until the ground gets either extended, etc. I think tickets probably going to be the biggest issue where it's going to cause pile-ons with fans.
Definitely. Interesting ones. Having Sunderland as our feeder club. Oh my god!
Only for Chris Ray. That's it. Mine was going to be we should never have wasted the money on ASM.
Mary's not being told no when really it's a yes.
Yes, all the
way.
Oh, brilliant. There you go. There's loads. There's loads of stuff you can have.
My one's a classic go-to. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Lauren Robert was better than David Ginola. That's my go-to.
I'd actually agree with that, to be fair.
Always causes an argument, but that's my go-to. I stick with it. Lauren Robert.
Was it his goal against Bolton?
Yeah, the one where he dribbled all the way from the halfway.
When he got the ball turned and just ran right the way through. That was one of the best goals I've ever seen.
It's an idea for a show, though. We each bring a topic and debate.
Yeah,
debate.
You've got to argue it. Yeah, change my mind
to the death.
Yeah.
That'd be a good idea for. That's a really good idea for a show.
That's the name. Change my mind.
Change my mind. Yeah, exactly. Come with a statement, and the guys in the chat have got to change your mind. There you go.
We're here all week.
We're here all week. Yep.
Watch out for it, boys.
Yep, exactly. Wrap up.
Oh, Mary, don't go there. Chris Woodward, no way. Not having that.
Don't anybody say fucking Andy Carroll, not if fucking Hall's watching.
He'll be bringing it Ben Arthur back as well.
Oh my God, Chris, Ben Arthur and Andy Carroll.
Carroll, yeah. Right, we better just give a shout out to the sponsors. Let's give a shout out to Russ and the RadiatorShed.com as we put Martin and Richie in jail. Everyone knows the quality material that Russ has available there, and some quality rads. New pictures coming soon. Actually, he's getting those showrooms ready, and also if you need to get those radiators installed, look no further than the Install Works. All linked in to Russ. And here's Russ with Colin Wilson. So you should probably see Russ out as well with this in April at the game and the night before. So we'll bump into Russ and you'll get to meet him as well.
I was just going to say, that picture, Pete, you put up, was that Russ with long hair?
This one.
Yeah. Radiator Russ with long hair. Nice.
Yeah, could be radiators.
Could be
not
him,
swords, it's radiators. There you go.
Yeah.
There we go. Another idea. Even full ideas tonight. Also a shout out to H2O Bathroom Design Co., the Northeast's largest supplier of Velcro and Botch bathroom wear. The Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, run by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. Look, I could do that job. Johnny 2 for life on the 10 here we go. As we give Richie a shower. Here are some of the bathrooms that are available.
As you seriously need to rephrase that, pal.
No, some of the things you said tonight already are
Yeah.
X-rated. And they've been
I think look at me. Dad's picked up on one of them before.
Wait till we tell Pete what you said.
I know.
And so
Stop.
here's some of the bathrooms. Yeah, quality pieces of kit there. So if you need to, if you know anyone that needs their house renovated, needs the bathrooms renovated, needs heating, contact Russ and H2O Bathroom Design Co. and they'll sort you out. We also mentioned already, we'll mention again that Away Days is coming up tomorrow. And Pete, give us the 10-second version this time.
Yep, Terry Flores and Dan from United First coming to join from a Man United perspective. It's going to be interesting with their thoughts and opinions. So tune in. It's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride.
Cool. And we're also back with a reaction show at the weekend as well. And so look out for that. And then we go straight, because the games are going to be coming thick and fast, we go straight into another one. We'll just give you he's back. He's back. Lawless is back on Away Days. So that's coming on the Monday, Pete, I think, isn't it?
It is coming on the Monday, 7:30. He's back in business, talking about all things West Ham and Newcastle. And they've got a massive game this weekend at home to Southampton. If they don't beat Southampton, he is going to be shitting it. There's no doubt about it. We spoke off air after the show last night, and he's adamant that they're going to win. So if Southampton spoil the party, that falls into our favour. There's no doubt.
Just before we go, lads, one thing to say, I want to pass our look on to Concert at the weekend. They are in a semi-final on Saturday against We United. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they make it through to the final. So good luck, lads.
Best of luck, lads.
Good luck, lads.
Go on the Bulls.
Yeah.
That is it, lads. Hope everyone enjoyed the show. Yeah, a bit of a mixed bag.
Thumbs up. We're just under 100 thumbs up. Click the thumbs up on the way out. We've had 190 odd during the show tonight. Click the thumbs up on the way out, guys. Thank you.
Likes.
Right. I was going to end the broadcast. Why don't I not just, how'd you like that instead? Good night, everyone.
Right.
Drink it like me, then tell me if you like that.